Welcome to the deep dive. We are really thrilled you could join us today
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this one.
because our mission today is to completely deconstruct the way we think about human achievement,
Right.
like how we approach our biggest goals and why so many of our grandest plans just end up, dying quietly in a drafts folder somewhere.
It is a pretty universal experience, honestly.
It really is. So to do that, we are looking at a remarkably brief but incredibly dense philosophical text today. It's titled The Architect of Discipline.
And when we say brief, we mean it.
Yeah, I mean, the entire source material we're analyzing today consists of exactly two maxims. It's 11 words in total.
Just 11 words.
Right, and they are discipline beats motivation. Motivation fades. Discipline builds empires.
It's just such a provocative starting point. I mean, those 11 words strip away all the romanticism and the cultural baggage we usually attach to success.
Oh, for sure.
And they force us to look at the stark, uncompromising mechanics of human behavior instead.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even get to the mechanics, we kind of have to look at that cultural baggage you just mentioned.
Right. Stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. When you picture someone achieving something truly massive, your brain almost automatically cues up a movie montage.
Oh, yeah. You know the exact one.
Right. There's a surging soundtrack, sweat flying off the brow, a look of pure, unadulterated fire in their eyes as they sprint up a flight of stairs in the rain.
Or frantically typing at a keyboard at midnight.
Yes. We worship that montage.
We really do. We culturally label that visible, burning fire as the ultimate driver of human action. We call it motivation.
We treat it like magic.
Exactly, like a magical resource. People wait for it to arrive, they try to manifest it, and when they feel it, they feel completely invincible.
That's a catch, right?
A huge one. The problem is that montage is fundamentally a lie about how long-term achievement actually works.
Because the music always stops.
Right. When you look at the reality of building anything substantial, the montage abruptly ends. It's a rainy Tuesday morning, you are exhausted, your alarm is blaring, and that fire in your eyes is, well, it's completely gone.
Which is exactly why this text frames human behavior as a battle between two distinct forces.
Yes, a clear conflict.
And if we want to understand the ultimate victor, we first have to take a really hard look at the loser in this equation. Like, we need to understand why motivation inevitably falls short.
And to understand that, we need to zero in on the specific phrasing the text uses, which is motivation fades.
Motivation phase.
Right. Notice it doesn't claim motivation is a flaw, or that it's useless, or that having it is somehow a bad thing.
No moral judgment at all.
Exactly. It simply states a lot of psychological physics. It fades. It is, by its very biological definition, an impermanent declining resource.
So what is actually happening beneath the surface there? Like, why is it a biological certainty that it fades?
Well, it comes down to neuroscience, specifically how our brains process dopamine.
Oh, right, the reward chemical.
See, that's the thing. We mistakenly think of dopamine as the reward chemical, the thing we feel after we achieve something. But neurobiologists will tell you it is actually the anticipation molecule.
Wait, anticipation.
Yes. It spikes in response to novelty and the prediction of a reward. When you get a brand new idea for a project, your brain experiences a massive dopamine prediction error.
Oh, wow.
It floods your system with energy and focus because the idea is new and exciting. That spike, that energy rush, that is motivation.
Right, it's that 3 a.m. urge to just, fix your entire life, buy a treadmill, and learn conversational Mandarin.
Precisely. But the human brain is ruthlessly efficient.
It doesn't want to waste energy.
Exactly. It is designed to return to homeostasis, a baseline state, as quickly as possible to conserve that energy.
Ah, yeah.
So once the novelty of the treadmill wears off, or once the reality of conjugating Mandarin verbs sets in, the brain realizes the reward isn't immediate.
And the spike drops.
The dopamine spike flatlines completely, the baseline drops. That is the biological mechanism behind the word fades.
So it's literally wired to run out.
Right. Therefore, any drive built solely on that neurochemical spike must inevitably decline.
That makes total sense. Actually, the way I think about it is like striking a match.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you strike it, and boom, you get this really bright, exciting burst of heat and light.
A lot of energy all at once.
Exactly. But it burns out so quickly.
Yeah.
And then you're just left holding a piece of burnt wood in the dark.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. Motivation is that initial spark.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Isn't that initial spark of motivation absolutely necessary to even start the process of discipline? I mean, can discipline exist if motivation didn't show up first to strike the match?
That is the core tension the text wrestles with, honestly. The initial desire to change or build certainly presents itself as motivation. It's a very powerful catalyst.
Right, you need the catalyst.
You do. The text isn't denying the utility of the catalyst. It is warning against the trap of expectation.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the danger isn't feeling motivated. The danger is believing you must continue to feel motivated in order to act.
Expecting the match to just burn forever.
Yes. And I'd love for you, the listener, to pause and reflect on this in your own life for a second.
Yeah, think about it.
Think about a time you felt incredibly highly motivated to start a new initiative. You bought the gear, you downloaded the productivity apps, you felt that massive dopamine spike.
We've all been there.
And then remember the inevitable day that the feeling just evaporated, the novelty wore off.
A match burned out.
Exactly. That fade is a universal biological experience. The critical juncture is what you choose to do in the moment the baseline drops.
And the transition, what we do when the dopamine fades, brings us to the central thesis of the text.
Because something has to bridge the gap between the initial idea and the final result.
Right.
What's fascinating here is the explicit framing of the phrase, discipline beats motivation.
Beats, that's a strong word.
It is. The verb beats is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It implies a contest, yes, but it also implies a systemic, ongoing victory.
A clear winner.
Right. Discipline is not presented as a backup plan or a secondary alternative for when you're tired. It is presented as the fundamentally superior mechanism for human action.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. If motivation is like the weather, unpredictable, constantly changing, then discipline is the climate-controlled house you build to withstand it.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to frame it.
Right, because you step inside the house, and it doesn't matter what's happening outside. It's 72 degrees, whether there's a blizzard or a heat wave outside.
Exactly. You've controlled the environment.
But, discipline sounds exhausting compared to motivation. How do we keep discipline from just feeling like sheer willpower?
Well, we often confuse discipline with willpower. We think discipline is just gritting your teeth and forcing yourself to do something you hate.
Which also fades.
Yes, willpower fades too. Willpower is ego depletion. It is actively fighting against your own resistance, which burns immense cognitive energy.
So how is discipline different?
Discipline, as framed by the architect of discipline, is about bypassing the prefrontal cortex entirely.
The decision-making part.
Exactly, and shifting the behavior to the basal ganglia, the part of the brain that handles automated habits and pattern recognition.
But how do you actually build that climate-controlled house? Because if I am completely exhausted on a rainy Tuesday morning, telling me to just be disciplined feels like a fancy way of saying use more willpower.
That's the trick. You don't build discipline on the Tuesday morning when you're tired. You build it the week before.
Oh, wow.
Discipline is the upfront design of your environment and your choices. It's removing the friction of decision-making entirely.
So it completely eliminates the internal debate.
Yes. You don't wake up and ask, do I feel like writing today? The system dictates that the action simply happens.
It renders your emotional state irrelevant to the task.
Exactly. When discipline beats motivation, it transfers the load from conscious effort to automated routine.
So what does this all mean for you right now? Look at the most important goals in your life. Where are you currently relying on fading motivation?
Where are you hoping to just feel good enough to do the work?
Right. Instead of building the quiet background process, the automated systems that guarantee the work gets done, regardless of how you feel.
It is a confronting realization. To accept the premise, discipline beats motivation requires radical responsibility.
It really does.
It demands that we stop outsourcing our long-term progress to our short-term fluctuating emotions.
But the text doesn't stop at the micro level, does it? It doesn't just leave us with the daily Tuesday morning grind of habit loops.
No, it zooms way out.
The final phrase of this text escalates the stakes dramatically, projecting everything we've discussed onto a massive historical canvas.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to deeply analyze the profound finality of the statement, discipline builds empires.
Empires?
Yeah,
That's
right.
a huge shift.
It's intentional. The text deliberately shifts from a micro-conflict beating motivation to a macro achievement, and the word empires is incredibly heavy.
It really is. It carries this weight of history, longevity, and massive scale.
It does. The text uses empires to signify compounding long-term achievements that alter your reality.
Because we usually associate discipline with small chores, right?
Exactly. Waking up early, doing the dishes, tracking expenses, small things. But this text elevates discipline to the level of monumental creation.
An empire is a complex, enduring structure.
And more importantly, the verb changes. We move from beats, which is combative and about overcoming, to builds, which is constructive and creative.
That shift from warrior to creator is incredible. Once you stop fighting your own lack of motivation every day, your energy transitions into pure accumulation.
It reminds me of the concept of compound interest in finance, but applied to human effort.
Yes, and this connects so perfectly to the title of the source text, The Architect of Discipline, especially the word builds.
Because an architect designs a structural system.
Exactly. Think of a master builder laying bricks. Motivation might make you, really want a castle. You can picture the finished castle in your head.
It gives you the glossy rendering.
Right. It's inspiring. But the glossy rendering doesn't bear any weight. Discipline is the actual act of laying a single block perfectly every single day, even when your back hurts and you are completely tired of staring at mortar.
You don't build a castle by staring at the rendering and feeling inspired.
No, you build it by executing the blueprint, brick by brick, until the compounding weight of your actions creates something massive.
This is where the text shatters our deepest illusions about human achievement.
How so?
Well, when society looks at a finished empire, whether that is a revolutionary company, a masterful work of art, or a decades-long marriage, they assume it was forged in a continuous, superhuman blast of motivation.
They look for the montage again.
Exactly, they look for the montage. But the reality is that the empire is merely the visible accumulation of invisible, highly disciplined days.
In a way, isn't that a massive relief? You don't need superhuman inspiration to build something extraordinary.
No, you really don't.
You don't need a montage. You just need to execute today's system. You just need to lay today's brick.
It completely democratizes achievement. It takes success out of the hands of the magically inspired and places it firmly in the hands of the relentlessly consistent.
That's so powerful.
And I want to encourage you, the listener, to think critically about what your personal empire is.
Because it obviously doesn't have to be a literal Roman conquest.
No, the empire is highly personal. Your empire might be cultivating a rich, deeply connected family life.
Or mastering a highly technical skill over 10 years.
Right. It might be building a body of creative work or achieving financial independence. Whatever that massive compounding achievement is for you, you must accept that the blueprint requires systemic discipline, not just an intense desire.
You have to define what you're trying to build.
Yes, so that your daily habits have an architectural direction.
Because discipline without an architectural blueprint is just aimless, exhausting labor.
Exactly.
But discipline attached to a clear vision. That is the architect at work.
And the architect knows that the most critical foundations are poured in the dark, quiet moments when no one is watching, and the initial spark of motivation has long since burned out.
Okay, let's pull all of these threads together because we have covered a lot of ground today.
We really have.
We took a deep dive into an 11-word framework that entirely rewires how we approach our goals. We started by breaking the illusion, right? Motivation fades.
We recognized it not as a moral failing, but as a biological certainty, the match that inevitably burns out.
Then we explored the active triumph. Discipline beats motivation. We redefined discipline away from the exhausting willpower trap and instead viewed it as the climate-controlled house that removes friction from our choices.
And finally, we scaled it up to the monumental. Discipline builds empires. We realized that by acting as the architect, by relying on the compounding math of consistent action, we can construct massive, enduring achievements that outlast any temporary neurochemical high.
But as we close, this raises an important question, doesn't it? One that extends beyond the immediate text for you to mull over in your own life.
Yeah, I think we have to ask what comes next.
Right. We have spent this time establishing the mechanics of construction. But if discipline is the sole force that builds the empire, what happens to the empire once it is built?
That's the real test.
Does maintaining an empire require an entirely different type of discipline than building one? Is the discipline of relentless creation the same as the discipline of careful preservation?
Wow. That is a completely different kind of load-bearing structure to think about.
The blueprint really never ends, does it?
The architecture is always an ongoing process.
Well, on that note, we want to warmly thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an incredible exploration of what it actually takes to bring our grandest visions into reality.
It's been great.
So tomorrow morning, When the music cuts out, the movie montage ends, and you're facing that quiet, unglamorous reality of the work. I mean, when you're facing the reality of the work, remember the tap.
Don't wait for the match to strike itself.
Exactly. Keep building your empires one disciplined brick at a time.